I'd like to update you on my takeaways from the recent spring meetings of the IMF and World Bank. The most surprising thing, for me anyway, was that investors were really quite bullish, more than I expected, but at the same time cautious. On the key issues of the day, China, we heard from IMF senior management basically saying that China's on steroids. Massive fiscal stimulus, front-loaded this year, so that has addressed a lot of concerns in the market. At the same time, on Latin America, we heard mixed signals. And I would say this is probably the most disappointing takeaway of all, is that we heard from senior officials from Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico, and in all cases, what they said appeared to be contradicted very shortly thereafter. For example, in Brazil, Paulo Guedes, the economy minister, gave an impassioned presentation of the reforms that he is trying to implement. And yet, the next day after his presentation, the President Bolsonaro, imposed price controls on diesel fuel, very much against what Paulo was trying to persuade the investors. In the case of Argentina, we heard from the economy minister and the head of the central bank a very upbeat presentation. At the same time, a week later, President Macri, who is running for re-election this year, imposed price controls. So is inflation under control? Imposing price controls? That's a mixed message that we're getting from Argentina. With regard to Mexico, we heard that the likelihood of the new NAFTA 2.0, or Trump calls it the USMCA, the new agreement, that it's going to be approved, but we heard that it's not likely. The Speaker of the House, Congresswoman Pelosi, there was agreement that she would likely simply put the new agreement in the drawer and not act upon it, certainly not before the elections coming next year. On Russia, everyone's convinced that sanctions are coming. It's a little bit like that play, Waiting for Godot. Everyone says he's coming, but he never shows up. And it's the same thing with sanctions. So Russia, very much projections of uncertainty. At the same time, nothing much is happening. On Turkey, we heard from the Treasury Minister, Berat Albayrak. He gave a presentation, quite impassioned, that they're going to address financial stability, and yet he didn't provide any details how they're going to achieve this. So investors walked away sensing that he doesn't really have a plan that can be implemented. And lastly, I think the last takeaway I would highlight is the fact that investors seem not to be noticing many of the geopolitical risks that are popping up all over the place. We see them in Iran, which has helped push up oil prices recently. We see it in Venezuela, where the Trump administration is trying to oust the current president. And we don't know how this is going to impact markets, but the sense is that we're moving into a more turbulent period ahead. Thank you.